building on the foundation of idealism, which posits that consciousness is the bedrock of reality, we explore a principle that fundamentally transforms our approach to knowledge. I know what I cannot know. This concept builds upon Socrates' "I know that I know nothing," by moving beyond mere acknowledgement of ignorance to precisely identifying the provable limits of our understanding. These limits are not merely obstacles, but serve as structural edges, much like the borders of a puzzle, defining the space within which meaningful comprehension can develop. Embracing these constraints allows us to avoid futile efforts and focus our attention on building knowledge within achievable realms. Immanuel Kant was instrumental in laying the groundwork for this perspective by recognizing that human knowledge is shaped by the structures of our minds, which order our perceptions through lenses of space, time, and categories of understanding. Kant's distinction between the phenomenal world, the world as we experience it, and the noumenal world, the reality that exists independently of our perception, was crucial for grasping epistemic boundaries. However, Kant's categories lacked a rigorous foundation grounded in prediction, which is necessary to fully elucidate the conception of knowledge. This foundation becomes clearer when we consider the famous Cartesian cogito. I think, therefore I am. Rather than being merely a static truth about existence, it reveals a profound insight. All knowledge, even self-knowledge, inherently involves prediction. To complete any thought, we must distinguish ourselves from everything else and anticipate our own continuity through time. When we think, we are predicting our own persistence. The self must endure to complete the thought, and thinking itself occurs over time. It's not that consciousness employs prediction as one of its functions, but rather that the inherent nature of consciousness is predictive. This predictive structure of consciousness manifests through a continuous cycle that underlies all knowing. It begins with doubt, acting as a detective that questions our certainties. Can I trust my perceptions? Is this a dream? Is this moment real? These uncertainties naturally give rise to prediction, as consciousness reaches forward to anticipate what comes next. I will continue to exist. My thoughts will remain coherent. Following prediction comes verification, where we test these anticipations. What I'm experiencing right now is real. The verification isn't an endpoint. It immediately spawns new doubts. Was my observation accurate? Was it all a dream? And so the cycle continues, each phase flowing seamlessly into the next. This ongoing cycle creates what we call the space of becoming, the dynamic gap between prediction and verification. This space isn't empty, but generative. It's the fertile ground where meaning and understanding take root. If our predictions were perfect, this space would collapse, eliminating the possibility of consciousness itself. This insight points to a profound truth. Perfect prediction would render consciousness obsolete. Imagine possessing absolute knowledge, where every detail of the future unfolds with unwavering certainty. In such a scenario, the element of surprise would vanish, leaving no new information to process. Without new information, there would be no future to anticipate, and without a future, one would cease to exist. This reveals a deeper understanding of consciousness and existence. True self-knowledge is not a fixed endpoint, but an ongoing journey of exploration and reflection. Consciousness thrives on uncertainty, flourishing in the delicate balance between total predictability and utter chaos. This equilibrium reveals how we perceive and interpret reality. Our minds are constantly engaged in making predictions and adjusting to their outcomes. A closer examination of this process unveils a fundamental truth. Knowledge is inherently predictive. What makes something the same object is our ability to predict its behavior based on past observations. When we say an apple is green, we are predicting it will remain green for some duration. Historical knowledge, even when focused on seemingly static facts, implies an assumption about the stability and consistency of human memory and interpretive frameworks. This recognition shows that knowledge of the past is never purely retrospective. It always involves forward-looking elements about how this knowledge will hold up to future scrutiny, new evidence, and continued application. This extends even to mathematical truths. When we claim to know that 2 + 2 = 4, we are making a prediction that this relationship will hold true, not only in the present moment of our understanding, but in all future calculations. We are predicting that no contradiction will emerge to invalidate this truth. This non-separation between knowledge and prediction transforms our understanding of fundamental philosophical challenges. Consider Hume's problem of induction, how we can justify our belief that the future will resemble the past. Hume argued that we have no logical justification for assuming that patterns observed in the past will continue into the future, seemingly undermining the foundation of all scientific reasoning. However, our framework reveals that the consistency of past and future isn't something we need to justify through reason or experience, but rather a logical prerequisite for any predictive system to exist at all, just as a self cannot exist without the ability to refer to itself across time. Prediction, and thus knowledge, cannot exist without some degree of consistency between past and future states. When we understand that knowledge is inseparable from prediction, we see that Hume's problem dissolves. We don't need to justify the assumption that patterns persist. Rather, the very existence of predictive systems proves that patterns must persist enough for prediction to be possible. The real question isn't how we can know the future will resemble the past, but rather how much consistency is necessary to maintain predictive systems. The ability to make predictions rests on 4 essential conditions that emerge from the very nature of prediction itself. Time must flow in one direction to ensure our predictions remain meaningful as we move from past to future. Space must exist to provide a place for both the predictor and their predictions. Causal relationships must remain consistent, creating reliable patterns we can use to forecast outcomes. Lastly, information must be discrete, allowing us to clearly distinguish between the predictor and what is being predicted. The discreteness of information is particularly vital. The binary distinction between predictor and predicted is not merely a conceptual convenience. It is a logical prerequisite for prediction to occur. For any prediction to have meaning, there must be a clear separation between the system making the prediction and the event or state being predicted, including predictions about the predictor's own future states. This fundamental distinction forms the foundation upon which all knowledge is built. From this foundational separation emerges the inherent binary nature of prediction itself. Every prediction reduces to a simple yes or no question. Either what we predict occurs and is true, or it fails to occur and is false. Binary logic thus emerges as a necessary consequence of the prediction process. This framework eliminates the need for abstract domains of truth, rooting logical consistency in the essential requirements of prediction itself. I think, therefore I am, thus serves as an ideal starting point because it represents the simplest possible self-validating prediction. As we established, discrete information, space, time, and causality emerge not as mere features of our universe, but rather as logical necessities for any system capable of prediction and thus knowledge. It resolves numerous historical confusions in science and philosophy. Questions that were once approached as empirical puzzles reveal themselves as logical necessities. Consider the arrow of time, traditionally one of physics' most enduring mysteries. Scientists have long grappled with understanding why time appears to move in a single direction, despite the time-symmetric nature of fundamental physical laws. The prediction framework offers a logical resolution to this mystery by establishing it as a foundational requirement for any universe capable of knowledge. Instead of seeking to explain the directionality of time through empirical phenomena, the framework posits that a unidirectional flow of time is essential for the very act of prediction to be possible. This fundamental requirement logically precludes the possibility of traveling into the past. Consider the inherent contradiction of someone using a time machine to prevent their own birth, which would create an impossible loop of causation. Such paradoxes reveal a deeper truth. Instead of trying to resolve them within their own terms, we should ask whether they violate the fundamental requirements for prediction and knowledge. If they do, they're not really paradoxes but logical impossibilities. Even if we imagine a universe governed by perfectly time-symmetric equations, the moment we introduce any system capable of prediction, we necessarily introduce time directionality. This is not due to physics, but due to the logical requirements. Knowledge acquisition necessitates a directionality of time in the act of prediction itself. This understanding fundamentally transforms our approach to scientific and philosophical inquiry by establishing a clear methodology for distinguishing between two types of investigation. The first concerns questions of logical necessity, those features that derive directly from the requirements of prediction and cannot vary. The second involves questions about the emergent phenomena in the observable universe, patterns that arise within the established logical constraints. This distinction illuminates a profound difference. On one side are universal truths that must hold for prediction to be possible, truths that would apply to any form of knowing in any conceivable universe. On the other side, there are the specific patterns and regularities that happen to be true in our particular universe. Understanding this fundamental division reveals something crucial. The boundaries of meaningful inquiry exist not as barriers to overcome, but as the essential architecture that makes prediction and thus knowledge possible at all.